Hey, it's Jeffrey W. Ingram coming here with part 2 of my series on using Campaign Cartographer. Specifically, I'll be using Campaign Cartographer 3 Plus, and I wanted to quickly put a companion video up talking about how I can use this to make maps quickly, why I like it. The first thing we can do is go up and make maps here. Like I said, if you saw my previous video, I have a few different types of map making products involved in here, but we're specifically today doing an overland map. So now if I come up here and I go to new, it's going to always ask before you leave a map if you want to save. Obviously you don't need to save the opening title. There are a couple settings here. One, you can pick predefined, and these are just sort of predefined settings to sort of give you an idea. This is 1000 by 800. This is about the largest you can get in predefined, which is much smaller than, like, you figure the world would be about 24,000, a little bit flatter on top, so like 24 by 23,000. So much smaller than an actual planet, but good for many types of overland maps. And you can also make your own, and this gives you a little bit different options here. One, you can kind of see all the different tile sets you have created and how you can use them. I'm just going to be doing this. Say, that one's pretty cool. I like this one. This one's probably my favorite currently. But we'll just do a standard overlay map just to have the symbols that come with it. There are some free symbols that people have out there, and there are some you can also purchase from Pro Fantasy as well. If I click on next, you can add in elements here, like you can add a map title. Okay. You can add in compass rose. Okay. And we will also add in, not here, we'll go to the bottom right, we'll add in a scale bar. And actually under here, we'll also add in, no, we'll just have that. And we'll call this How Tua. Very clever name. If you go to next, it will actually show you where the things that you selected are. It looks like I did not correctly pick that here. You can pick your basic bottom, which for me, I'm going to keep as dark water. And I'm going to go ahead, click here. I'm going to create a map called How Tua. And you see there's the elements that I created in. It actually adds a border in for me. And so this is a basic of a map. Now, a few things to understand. Here are different layers. Layers are sort of where things are. So if I select on different layers, you remember that what I said is do landmass, which sometimes is under here, but not in this version. But there's also this landmass bar, which I'll be using. There's a contour bar if you want to use contour lines instead. You can come over. Mountains are typically what I'll do next, and we'll kind of go through the process of making a few different things. And this is not going to be necessarily a complete map. It's just to show you the functionality. So the first thing I want to do is I want to be on the sea level, and I want to create coastline. And so there's a few things you can do. This is a small map, so it's maybe part of a larger world. Or you could make like islands, whatever you want. So I think I'm going to just make a island with a cove here. And I'm just right-clicking a few different points along the way to add. You notice they add in some fractalization, which will sort of make your lines non-straight. Whenever you're done, you just right-click and it will actually create the basic landmass for you. So very quickly, I have a landmass in there. Now I want to, following my own procedures, I want to come in and I want to add in some other things. Here are all the different mountain types of features you can have. You'll notice some of the features, you can see this in different areas as well too, have a plus sign, which means there are multiple options. And on some of them where there's this R, it will randomize, so it will actually change it around. So I just want to add in, I like to usually use a base color. So I want to add in some mountains, sort of, this is kind of an island, so we're going to assume it's a volcanic island. And once again, when I get done, I just right click and it adds in this bar to add some contrast. I want a volcano, but one of the suggestions I have is you want to work down. So essentially, and the reason is because these are all bitmaps. So if I go up, they look funny. So if I come in here, you'll see that like this is on top of that. That doesn't look right. So I go File, Undo. And one of the things I'm keeping in mind here is that in this island, there's going to be a volcano somewhere around here. And I want to work down. Typically in islands, elevation's higher in the middle. That's the reason why I did it. You can pick sort of areas where you have plate collisions if you're doing a full continent map. But let's go through here, and we're going to start with some small mountains. Some small happy mountains. And you notice, and however close you want them is kind of up to you, but you notice they kind of change around. And then let's go to some larger mountains here and say, okay. And notice I'm kind of doing shadow first, so I'm always doing this like left to right fashion. And you notice it's like it keeps alternating for me. If you do things that are just sort of a little weird, just make sure to cover it up. I don't find the need to cover everything completely. And sometimes I will use overlaps. So I come down here. And now it's a little bit more wide. And yes, I'm purposely doing this, leaving this little area. It's meant to show sort of a higher elevation, but it's not all mountainous here. And you'll see why when I'm done. No, I have no plan for this map. I'm just sort of eyeballing it. Now, you probably would never have a lone island out here. You'd probably have like a secondary or tertiary island as well. I kind of like to work one landmass at a time. See, it's going to kind of weaken out down here. So I'm going to go back to some smaller mountains here. Now, I've created a bit of a bind for myself here. If I really want to do it correctly, I want to be a little bit more careful to make sure that my symbols don't start overlaying funny. And it's kind of more about watching these. Looks like I have a little bit of an overlap here. Kind of come down. Now I could move that under, but it's gonna screw a lot of things. So I'm just gonna actually delete this one since this is a quick map. And you notice it didn't redraw the map. You can refresh it, or if you change the perspective, it will redraw the map. But when you delete stuff, it doesn't automatically remove it. So now I have some basic mountains in here. I could put in some hills. Let's add in some hills here. Notice these are all the same because of the symbol I picked. There's a little bit more variation here. So some hills up here, sort of greenery hills. This is I guess a bit more of a wet island. Now, on an island, these mountains probably aren't too high. That's going to have a rampant effect with weather. But normally when you look at mountains, you want to pick a wet side and a dry side. So for purposes of here, even though that on an island it might not work the same because it's a smaller landmass. But remember, this is a pretty big island. If I come up to overview and I go distance, you're talking about at its widest point, it's about 600 miles. So keep that in mind. But now I've put in some higher elevations, and I could put in some dry elements if I want to. I usually pick the color based off of how I want things to feel. Now I can click here on rivers, and I'm going to put in a quick river here because this is what I determined to be my wet side. Rivers typically run from mountains to coastlines. And the thing to remember about rivers is they do not run in a straight line here. And then I get close up here, you know, I could kind of guess where I want it to go. But the problem is wherever I click it, it's a vector, so it'll never quite match up. There's an endpoint product here that will allow you, let's pick a spot that is pushed out. Now I have a river that runs through it. Now, typically areas around rivers have a bit better vegetation. And so you notice it's like I'm working down, and I could probably add in a few more rivers. Maybe there's a lake or something here as well too. But for to keep it brief, I'm just trying to show you the basic features. And I'll probably do some more specific maps in my world as I'm reconstructing it in CC3 to go over each of these things in a little bit more detail. But now I want some vegetation. So now you know, here are all the different types of trees. You could say it's typically you're going to have a little bit more lushness around grass. Steppes are drier. These all sort of move to wetter. Usually get more like farm type of land here. So I just want to, and I actually did that on purpose, where I kind of overlapped it because I want to show something here. And typically when you get by the coast, the land isn't quite as lush either because of the salt. And I added in this quick farmland here, and it put it under my river. And actually, because of the layer it's on, it put it underneath the mountains for me, because when I drew it, I actually overlapped here on purpose to show that it's pretty smart. It'll sort of do stuff like that, you based off of your layer. Now let's add in some forest over here. We're gonna go random. Now there are different ways to do forest. I kind of like smooth polygons. And I'm just going to kind of draw something here for where my forest is. Whoops, that is not filled. Undo. We'll just grab a forestry one here. We'll cheat. We'll do this. So I don't have to draw all the symbols. They have some neat software here that will fill in the forest for you. These aren't jungle. Jungle would probably make more sense here. So for some reason, the jungle will be over here on the dry side. And that's one thing I really like is it kind of comes in, and when you pull in close, you're going to see all of this kind of stuff. You probably want to add in a few lingerers to make it not look quite so angular. Add a little bit more density right there. But like I said, I'll probably go more into those specifically on my world map as I start doing that one more. But I kind of like it, just sort of fills it in. Looks pretty good. So now I've done mountains, the coastline, rivers, internal waterways. There's only one on this island. And then vegetation. And then once I do that, then I move to structures. So there's another layer for structures. And it's very important. You could load up the incorrect symbols just by clicking in here. You can go to all of the symbols that you have for it and pick anything that you want. Or you can actually put inappropriate stuff on different levels. But we're going to put in a couple things. Let's go back to maximum. And I'm going to add in, let's see, we're at the coast here. Let's go more villagey. And this, not deserty. I kind of like a little Asian flair there. Let's go a little Roman here. So classic walled town. We're just going to kind of put up here near the shore. That's probably the PowerPoint of the island. Have sort of your temple outside. It's not meant to do specific mapping. There's an old ruined keep back here. And there's another classic stronghold that's been built and put right here to kind of control this, because there's some different people up there. There's some barbarian people, and we'll make them European. But there's a European lord that has invaded the island and built a mansion up here. No cities yet or anything. And but I can quickly put things together that way as well. You can use your drawing elements. You can add in roads. You can do them Roman style straight. You can add dashes to them. I don't want to go into all of the elements here, but typically, you know, I just wanted to show the basic features that you can quickly put together a pretty good looking map. You know, have your little details, your title, and your scale all on the map to make it more useful for other people who look at it, or for you later on. So I hope you found this useful, and I'll probably do some more that go more specifically into elements as I'm working to remap my world. So I'll do that in a different video though. This one's gone long enough. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. If you did, let me know below.